I rolled into the parking lot of Trident Springs Ranger Operations with my windows down, letting the cold, resin-scented air wash the road out of my lungs. 2 days. 2 days of asphalt, truck stop coffee, and mile markers counting down the distance between me and Minneapolis, between me and the wreckage I'd left behind. I didn't come west for romance or reinvention. I came because the posting promised 3 things I could still tolerate: solitude, structure, and a job where my hands could be useful without anyone asking what those hands had done overseas. It was barely 7 a.m. The lot was mostly empty, just a few green and white government rigs, logos gleaming under thin mountain light. I snatched my paperwork off the passenger seat and checked myself in the mirror. Clean shave, close-cropped hair, neutral face. I'd learned the trick in the Army. Look like you're easy to supervise. People relax when we think you're predictable. The building looked like it had grown out of the rock. Low stone walls, narrow windows, a heavy wooden door that seemed designed to keep winter out and other things in. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over benches and faded posters: bears, wolves, thermal pools with warning labels that always sounded polite right up until someone died. The air smelled like old paper, disinfectant, and damp wool. A woman behind the counter glanced up from a stack of forms. Mid-40s, red-brown hair twisted into a tight knot. Uniform crisp enough to cut skin, but hands that told the truth: calloused, weathered, real. Her eyes tracked me the way you track an animal you don't want to startle. "Name?" she asked. "Evan Rusk," I said. "New hire. Reporting for orientation." Her mouth tightened in a way that might have been a smile in another life. "Deputy Supervisor Mara Klein." She stepped around the counter and offered a handshake that felt like a contract. "Welcome to Iron Ridge National Preserve. How was the drive?" "Long," I said. "But good. It's always long," she replied, as if distance was part of the job description. She slid a manila folder toward me and began laying out the usual: employment forms, radio protocols, emergency contact sheets, vehicle checklists. Nothing surprising. Then she reached beneath the counter and pulled out a single-page plain white paper, typed in old-school monospaced font. It looked like something from a basement filing cabinet nobody opened unless they had to. She placed it on top of the stack and pushed it toward me with 2 fingers. "Local procedures," she said. "If you're assigned to this district, you follow them exactly." I picked it up. 6 numbered items. My eyes caught on the first line and stalled. ***1. If you observe a bear moving backward, do not meet its gaze. Continue your route. Do not stop. Do not notify dispatch. ***1. Read it twice. Then I looked up. A bear? Moving backward? Mara didn't blink. Yes, I scanned Rule 2. ***2. If a visitor approaches after hours and requests information, and offer water, do not answer questions. Do not ask questions. Rule 3 mentions specific patrol timing. ***, 2 hours after sunset. No earlier, no later. Rule 4 hit like a slap. **4. If you hear a child crying off-road, do not investigate, under any circumstances. Rule 5. ***5. If you hear 3 wolf howls in sequence, secure yourself inside the nearest station until dawn. Barricade if needed. Rule 6. **6. If you encounter 3 or more people sitting together outdoors, leave immediately. Do not engage. Do not observe for long. Let the paper lower a fraction. Is this a joke? I asked carefully. Some kind of initiation? Mara's face stayed steady, as if I'd asked about tire pressure. These procedures were written with blood, she said. Not humor. My throat went dry. A bear walking backward. I tried again, because my brain kept searching for a normal box to put it in. That's not really a thing. Wildlife behaves oddly in thermal zones, Mara said. The ground shifts, heat changes patterns. Some things here don't behave the way they do on television. Her tone stayed professional trained, neutral, like she'd practiced it. Look, I said, lowering my voice. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to understand what I'm agreeing to. You're agreeing to follow the procedures. She tapped the paper. Exactly as written. There were a dozen questions clawing up my throat. I swallowed them all. I needed the job. After 2 tours as a combat medic and a discharge that came with a polite file label **adjustment disorder with trauma symptoms ***, spent months hearing the same thing from employers. We went with a different candidate. Iron Ridge had offered me a key, a uniform, and a place quiet enough that my head might stop screaming at night. So I nodded. Understood. Mara handed me a radio from a charging dock. Channel 6 for routine. Channel 2 for emergencies. Your unit is the White Explorer, Vehicle 11. Keys slid across the counter. Today you'll run the North Meadow Loop. Get familiar with the roads, pull-offs, and sight lines. Backup? I asked, out of habit. You'll patrol solo for now. Radio check every 2 hours. Her gaze held mine for the first time, like she was pinning me to the truth of it. These procedures exist for a reason, she said quietly. Follow them. Outside, the morning felt brighter, but my skin didn't buy it. Vehicle 11 was easy to spot. White SUV, light bar, government plates. Inside smelled like stale coffee and cheap pine freshener. A laptop mount stood between the seats. A clipboard clipped to the dash. I adjusted the seat, set my mirrors, and unfolded the preserve map across the steering wheel. The North Meadow Loop cut through some of the most remote ground in the district. Wide valleys, timbered ridges, thermal pockets where the earth breathed. My radio crackled. Unit 11 radio check. I lifted the handset. Unit 11, operational. Copy. Good patrol. The road out of Trident Springs wound through terrain that changed its mood every few miles. Sage Flats to lodgepole forest, then open slopes where the wind ran clean and cold. Traffic was light. A couple of early photographers. A family and a camper who looked lost even when the road was straight. It should have felt like peace. It almost did. By mid-morning, the valley opened in front of me like a postcard. Gold grass, river threading silver, distant movement that might have been elk. This was what I'd wanted. This was what I'd come for. I pulled into a turnout around 10 a.m. to update my patrol log. The world below looked calm enough to forgive. That's when I saw it, a bear. Big grizzly big moving on a hillside about 50 yards off the road. At first, my brain tried to interpret it as normal, but the motion was wrong. The bear wasn't walking down the slope head first like any heavy creature would. It was backing down. Rear legs stepping carefully. Front paws reaching behind itself, testing footing. Controlled, precise, like it had done it before. Rule 1 flashed in my head so sharply I felt it physically. If you observe a bear moving backward, do not meet its gaze. The bear's head turned, slow and steady, and I felt that awful instinct look, confirm, understand, reach for control. I forced my eyes to the road. Hands tightened on the wheel. I accelerated in a way that wouldn't read as panic. But even without looking, I could feel the way the bear tracked the SUV like it was watching through me. My peripheral vision caught the shape, the deliberate backward descent, the uncanny calm. When the road curved and trees swallowed the hillside, I checked my mirror. Nothing but forest. I breathed out too hard and tried to convince my brain it was just an animal doing something weird. Thermal shifts, injury, instinct, a story I could live with. I finished the loop, checked in on schedule, and wrote a report so boring it could have put a lawsuit to sleep. I didn't mention the bear. I didn't mention the way my skin had crawled like it recognized a threat before my thoughts did. That night, an employee housing small government cabin, thin walls, a kitchenette that made ramen feel like fine dining. I laid Mara's rule sheet on the table and stared at it like it might blink first. Rule 4 sat there like a moral injury. Don't investigate a crying child. I'd spent a career running toward screams. Now I was being told my job required the opposite. I folded the paper and slid it into my wallet, right next to my old military ID that I still carried like a superstition. At 6:30 a.m., my alarm went off. At 7 a.m., I was back in uniform. At sunset, I watched the sky go bruised purple over the ridgeline. And at exactly 2 hours after, I pulled out of *** Cinder Fork Ranger Outpost ** with my headlights cutting into darkness. The radio was quieter after hours. No chatter, no casual updates, just the sound of static when nothing human was speaking. The road narrowed between thick lodgepoles. Night, it felt like driving through a throat. My patrol checklist had 4 scheduled stops. I kept my speed steady and my eyes moving. 20 minutes in, I heard it. A child crying. Soft at first, then clear, high, scared, raw. It drifted through the trees to my right, rising and falling like it was being carried toward me. I slowed. Stopped. Engine idling. My whole body leaned toward the sound without permission. Then Rule 4 rose like a barrier inside my skull. If you hear a child crying off-road, do not investigate. The crying came closer. Words formed through sobs. Help me. Please. I can't find them. My hand hovered over the radio. Calling for help wasn't the same as going in. But the rule didn't say *, don't call *. It said don't investigate. A small figure broke from the tree line ahead, maybe 30 yards out, running toward the road. A girl. About 8. Light jacket, jeans, hair a mess, face streaked with tears. She rushed toward the driver's side like she'd spotted salvation. "Please!" she cried. "I can't find my mom and dad, please help me." I rolled my window up, leaving just an inch of gap. The girl pressed close, face illuminated by my headlights, real tears, red eyes, trembling mouth. Every nerve screamed. Get her in. Warmer. Radio dispatch. Do your job. But the paper in my wallet felt heavier than a weapon. "I can't," I said through the crack. The words tasted like rust. Her expression shifted, hope collapsing into confusion. "But I'm lost," she whispered. "I've been walking forever." I swallowed the urge to open the door. "I'm sorry," I said, voice harder than I meant. "I can't help." Then I put the SUV in drive. As I pulled away, I watched her in the mirror. She stood in the road for a beat. Then she ran after me. At first it looked normal, short legs pushing, arms pumping. Then I hit 20 miles per hour. She stayed behind me. 30. She stayed. 40. And she was still there, running at 40 miles per hour like it cost her nothing, like she could do it all night. My pulse hammered in my ears. I stared at the speedometer as if it might apologize. I pushed faster, not caring about the rules of the road anymore. The child kept pace. Then, without slowing, without falling back, without any human transition, she was gone. The road behind me was empty, lit only by my taillights. I finished the route on muscle memory and returned to Cinder Fork, feeling like I'd driven out of my own mind. The outpost door was open. I'd locked it. I stepped inside, slow, radio in hand. Emergency lights cast long shadows across desks and cabinets. Someone sat at my workstation. A woman, maybe late 30s, outdoor gear, boots, jacket. She looked like a hiker who'd wandered into the wrong place and decided to make herself comfortable. She smiled. "Evening," she said like we were neighbors. "Hope you don't mind me waiting inside. It's cold." Rule 2 slammed into me. Offer water. Do not answer questions. I moved to the small kitchenette, filled a paper and cup, and held it out. "Water, thanks." She took it but didn't drink, just cradled it. "I was hoping you could help me with some information," she said, voice pleasant. "I'm curious about how you train new rangers out here. Especially unusual protocols." I stayed silent. She studied my face like she was collecting data. "You've got military in your posture," she said. "The way you scan, the way you listen." "What branch?" Silence. She laughed, a sound that had the shape of a laugh without the heat. "Well," she said, setting the cup down untouched. "Thank you for the hospitality." She walked out into the darkness. I locked the door twice, heart banging. When I looked out the window, the parking lot held only my unit. No car. No footprints I could see. Then 30 minutes later it came. 3 wolf howls. Not a pack calling to hunt. Not lonely. Perfectly spaced. 3 directions like a code. Rule 5. Barricade until dawn. I didn't hesitate. I checked locks, wedged chairs, shoved a file cabinet against the front window. My hands worked fast, like they'd been waiting for permission to do something real. And then the sound started. Footsteps circling the building in a slow, deliberate loop. A scratch at one window latch, then another. Testing. Something heavy scraped across the roof, end to end, with a steadiness that did not sound like pause. I sat at the desk with my radio in my hand, not calling, not speaking, breathing shallow, waiting for daylight the way you wait for reinforcements that might never come. At sunrise, the world looked normal again. Normal enough to make the night feel like an illness. But my body remembered it as real. That morning, I was scheduled to meet Cal Mercer a senior ranger stationed at Mirror Lake Visitor Center. 30 years in the system, according to the roster. Mara had mentioned him in passing. He'll help you understand how things work here. Mirror Lake sat like a sheet of steel under gray sky. The visitor center windows framed it like an exhibit. Cal was tall, weathered, uniform worn soft by time. He had the easy confidence of someone who'd spent decades in places where weather, animals, and tourists all tried to kill themselves in different ways. He shook my hand like it mattered. "Rusk, right?" he said. "Welcome to the ridge." We sat with coffee overlooking the lake. He made small talk, weather, road conditions, tourist season. Then he said, casually, "Funny thing, we got a report about a missing kid from one of the camping loops. Little girl. About 8, light jacket, jeans." My stomach tightened. He stirred his coffee like he hadn't just dropped a grenade into my brain. "They said she wandered off 3 nights ago," he added. "Happens. Kids can walk farther than you think. 3 nights, I said carefully. Yep, he shrugged. Search teams do their thing. Or the kid pops up somewhere hungry and mad. It usually sorts itself out. No urgency, no fear, no asterisk we need all units looking. Asterisk it was wrong. And Cal stood as if we'd just discussed vehicle maintenance. Anyway, today you're on the South Shore Circuit. More visitor interaction. Good way to get the rhythm. He handed me a route map marked with red checkpoints. As he walked away, he glanced back, his voice dropping a notch. And those local procedures Mara gave you, they're not folklore. Follow them. I drove my route, did my job, smiled at tourists, answered questions about trails and fishing, offered a lost couple directions like a normal person in a normal world. But the missing girl sat in the back of my head like a stone. Around mid-afternoon, I saw them. 3 people sitting together on a bench by the lake. 2 adults and a teenager, all facing the water, still as mannequins. As I approached, the teen turned its head, slow and exact, and looked straight at my vehicle. A wide smile spread over its face, too big, too practiced. In my mirror, all 3 turned in unison, tracking me until the road bent away. Rule 6, leave immediately. I did. That night in the employee cafeteria, I sat with my tray because being alone felt like a trap. A younger ranger, skinny, jittery, maybe mid-20s, sat in the corner stabbing at meatloaf like it had offended him. His name tag read *** Toby Finch ***. He looked up, eyes darting. You knew, he said. Yeah. He nodded too quickly. You been following the paper? My fork paused. The procedures, I asked. Toby's laugh came out thin. Procedures, he echoed like it was a lie. Yeah. The paper. I've been following them, I said. His shoulders loosened a fraction, like he'd been holding his breath. Good, he whispered. Good. Don't get brave. What is this place? I asked, keeping my voice low. Toby's eyes flicked to other diners. A normal room of employees eating dinner. He watched them like they might be listening through their forks. That's not the question, he said. What is the right question? I pressed. He leaned closer, his breath smelling like coffee and fear. How long you can keep your mouth shut, he said. How long you can keep acting like everything's normal. I stared at him. He swallowed. I've seen the bear, he whispered. The one that backs down slopes. I've seen it too many times. Always where it can watch me. A cold line drew itself down my spine. How many? I asked. Dozens. His voice shook. It shows up like it's scheduled, like it knows my route. And the kid? I asked. Toby's face went pale. He didn't answer. He just stared at his tray like the food might turn into words he couldn't say. Then he said, barely audible, tomorrow's going to be different. Different how? He stood abruptly, leaving his meal untouched. Different because it won't fit the paper, he said. Different because they change it when you get used to it. Who? I said. But he was already walking away, fast, shoulders hunched, checking behind him like he expected someone to grab him by the collar. That night I lay on my government mattress staring. The ceiling, Mara's sheet folded in my wallet like a curse. Tomorrow's going to be different. I woke before my alarm. At 7 a.m., my radio crackled. Mara's voice came through tight, careful, like she was reading with someone watching her. Unit 11. You're assigned to Ashen Flats Patrol today. Standard checkpoints. Radio contact every 2 hours. Something in her tone felt staged. Any specific concerns? I asked. A pause. Negative, she said. Routine patrol. Maintain standard procedures. The emphasis on standard procedures landed heavy. Ashen Flats was a wide valley carved by a river, with ridges on both sides and enough open ground to make you feel exposed. It should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt like standing in the center of a stadium with invisible eyes in the seats. 20 minutes in, I saw the first trio. 3 people seated on a fallen log near the road. 2 adults and a teen, still facing away. As I approached, the teen turned, slow as a machine, and smiled. I didn't stop. I didn't stare. I drove on. 15 minutes later, another trio. Different faces, same posture, same choreography. By noon, I'd seen 5 separate groups of 3. Always positioned where I couldn't miss them. Always turning in synchronized precision. It wasn't coincidence. It was theater. Someone knew my route. Someone had planted them. At *** Canyon Junction Station ***, a hub where multiple roads converged, I pulled in for my scheduled break and found unfamiliar vehicles. A black SUV with government plates, a sedan too clean for the preserve. Inside, a woman stood reading a geology display like she'd written it. Blonde bob, severe blazer, shoes wrong for this place. She turned and smiled professionally. You must be Ranger Rusk." Her handshake was cold, practiced. "Dr. Lenora Voss," she said. "I'm conducting a study on wildlife adaptation." I kept my face neutral. "Wildlife adaptation," I repeated. "Yes." Her eyes lingered on me the way a clinician's eyes linger on a patient, specifically how stressors in remote environments influence human decision-making in high-alert individuals. The hair on my arms lifted. "I understand you've had some interesting encounters," she said. My mouth went dry. "I've had standard patrol interactions," I said. "Of course," she replied, smiling wider. "I'm particularly interested in emotional regulation, compliance under unusual directives." She knew about the sheet. She knew I'd been following it. I forced my voice steady. "How do you know about my directives?" Dr. Voss flipped open a small notebook like she'd expected that question. "2 deployments," she said casually. "Medical unit, discharged with trauma-related hypervigilance markers. Documented anxiety responses. Strong obedience conditioning. Excellent candidate profile." My stomach dropped. "Those records weren't supposed to exist outside locked systems. That's confidential," I said. She didn't blink. "Your adaptation curve is tracking within predicted parameters," she said. "Which is good adaptation to what?" I asked, and my voice sounded sharper than I intended. Her smile thinned. "Controlled environmental stress scenarios," she said, "designed to test resilience and behavioral compliance. The preserve around me, every road, every turnout, every lonely stretch of forest suddenly felt less like wilderness and more like a laboratory. I wasn't an employee. I was a subject. I need to continue my patrol," I said, stepping back. "Of course." Her tone softened in a way that felt like a warning disguised as concern. "Just remember, questions can disrupt adaptation." I left without answering her smile. My hands shook when I opened the SUV door. All afternoon I moved like I was walking through someone else's dream. Every radio check felt like surveillance. Every tourist felt like a possible actor. Every tree line felt like a hiding place for someone with a clipboard. At dusk, I was assigned to the thermal basin area. The boardwalk steamed under moonlight, empty except for late photographers and the occasional staff member. Then my radio crackled someone else. Panicked. "Base, this is Unit 59, need backup." Toby's voice. My spine went rigid. "Unit 15, this is Unit 11, I snapped. "Location?" "Evan, thank God," Toby said, breathless. "She's here. The kid. The one that cries. She's following me." My throat tightened. "Where are you?" "Near the Sapphire Pool lot. She keeps appearing ahead of me. Every time I turn, she's there." "How?" I asked, though I already knew. "I'm doing 40, he gasped. "She's running beside the truck like it's nothing." Static chewed his words. Then the line cleared just enough to carry a terrified whisper. "The paper isn't protection," Toby said. "It's part of it. Don't trust." The radio went dead. I tried calling him back. Nothing. I contacted dispatch. Mara's voice returned too quickly, too calm. She gave me Toby's last coordinates as if she'd been waiting for me to ask. I drove like my life depended on it, because I had a sudden feeling it did. I found Unit 15 beside a thermal pool, engine running, door open. No Toby. His belt, his clipboard, his radio still inside. The thermal pool steamed beside the vehicle, water bubbling like a mouth. Warning signs screamed in cheerful fonts about death. I searched the nearby trees, shouted his name, listened for anything. Nothing. When I radioed the incident, Mara responded with that same clinical phrasing. "Copy. Unit 11. Return to base for debrief. This will be handled through appropriate channels." Appropriate channels. Not search and rescue. Not emergency response. A phrase you use when you don't want witnesses. I returned to headquarters with my jaw clenched so tight my teeth hurt. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed with the rule sheet in one hand and my phone in the other, scrolling through contact lists I barely used. Then I remembered someone. A man named Sam Caldwell ***, my old platoon. Sergeant, the kind of person who didn't ask for a story before offering help. Veterans kept unofficial networks because official systems often came with conditions. I didn't call him yet. Not until I knew the truth. At 8:15 a.m. the next morning, I walked into the administrative building like a storm and found Mara at her desk, coffee in hand, trying to look normal. I didn't give her time. "Where's Toby Finch?" Her expression flickered. "Ranger Finch has been reassigned," she said too smoothly. "Personnel matters. His vehicle was abandoned beside a thermal pool." I cut in. Engine running. Door open. No sign of him. "That's not reassignment." "The situation is being handled," she said. "By who?" I demanded, leaning forward. The The same people who sent Dr. Voss to quote my confidential military file? Mara's face went paler than the paper in my wallet. For the first time, fear cracked her posture. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her eyes had already betrayed her. I lowered my voice into the tone that used to steady medics under fire. You do, I said, and I'm done playing along. Mara stood, walked to the office door, and locked it. When she turned back, the uniform looked heavier on her, like it had been pinned to her skin. You weren't supposed to figure it out this fast, she whispered. My heart pounded. Figure what out? She stared at the window like she expected someone on the other side. You were recruited on purpose, she said. Your background, your diagnosis, your profile, I repeated. It's a program, she said, voice low. An experimental initiative. They study how trauma survivors respond to perceived anomalies, paranormal threats, impossible scenarios. The room tilted. So the bear, I said. The crying kid. The trios by the lake, doll staged, Mara admitted. Actors, technology, sound projection, remote observation. My stomach twisted. And Toby. Mara's throat worked. He didn't adapt, she said. He kept trying to break the parameters. Parameters, I spat. They removed him, Mara said. Transferred him to a facility for extended evaluation. I stared at her. That's kidnapping. Her eyes filled for half a second with something that looked like shame. They call it care, she said. They have legal language, contracts, consent buried in paperwork. I thought of the forms I'd signed with road dust still on my hands. I want out, I said. Mara's face tightened. That's not simple, she murmured. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. A knock. A woman's voice came through the door, clinical, calm, commanding. Mara, open up. We need to review Ranger Rusk's progress. Another voice, Cal Mercer's, joined it, softer, almost friendly. Evan, you in there? Let's talk. My blood went cold. Mara's face turned toward me. They're coming, she whispered. The doorknob rattled again. Mara's hand hovered over the lock like she was deciding whether to betray me or herself. Please, she said to me, not to them. Your compliance has been excellent. They'll offer compensation. They'll make it sound I don't care, I said. I'm not a lab rat. The knocking became firmer. Mara, Dr. Voss said, voice sharpened. Open the door. Mara unlocked it with a sound that felt like a gunshot. Dr. Voss stepped in first, clipboard in hand, her blazer immaculate as if fear couldn't touch fabric. Cal came in behind her, but the relaxed ranger smile was gone. Two men in uniform filled the doorway. Security, not staff. Ranger Rusk, Dr. Voss said, smiling like a dentist. I understand you have concerns. I understand you're running unauthorized psychological experiments on employees, I said. And you've disappeared at least one ranger. Dr. Voss didn't flinch. Your employment agreement includes a research evaluation period, she said. Ethical review determined compliance. My eyes flicked to the security men. One had something clipped under his jacket that wasn't standard gear. Cal took a step closer, voice warm in a way that felt rehearsed. Nobody wants this to get messy, he said. Let's be practical. There are incentives for cooperation. What happens if I don't cooperate? I asked. Dr. Voss consulted her clipboard like it was a menu. Additional assessment at a specialized facility, she said. A controlled environment designed to support your needs. Support. The word was a lie with a soft blanket over it. I looked at Mara. She couldn't meet my eyes. My chest burned with something worse than anger, violation, humiliation. The same old feeling from the military when you realize the mission had never been what they told you. I took one slow breath, scanning the room like I'd been trained. Door blocked, window facing the parking lot, back corridor behind a file cabinet. 4 people between me and air. They assumed I'd argue. They assumed I'd negotiate. They assumed my trauma made me manageable. They'd underestimated what combat training does when you realize you're trapped. I moved, fast. I grabbed Mara's heavy ceramic mug and threw it into the nearest guard's face. He stumbled, cursing, colliding with the other man. Cal lunged. I drove an elbow into his chest hard, and he folded with a strangled sound. Dr. Voss shouted something orders, probably, but her voice blurred behind adrenaline. I sprinted through the back corridor, boots pounding on linoleum, and hit the rear exit. Cold air punched me. I dropped off the loading dock, ran for the tree line, ignoring shouts behind me and the crackle of radios calling me **subject** instead of ranger. I reached the trees and didn't stop running until my lungs burned and my legs shook. I knew the terrain. Patrol routes had taught me the shortcuts tourists never saw. 20 minutes later, I reached my unit. I got in, started it, and drove like I belonged there. Calm speed. No panic. If you look guilty, people hunt you harder. 2 miles from the north gate, I saw the roadblock. 3 government vehicles across both lanes. Mara stood by the lead car, radio in hand. Cal leaned against another truck, holding his ribs. They'd anticipated my route. They'd anticipated everything. I pulled to the shoulder far enough away to avoid immediate capture. My hands clenched on the wheel. If I tried to ram through, I'd hurt people following orders, people who might be victims too. If I stayed, they'd take me to the facility. I turned off the engine, grabbed my day pack, and left the keys in the ignition like an insult. Then I ran into the woods. On foot, the preserve couldn't corral me as easily. 15 minutes into the forest, a voice called my name. "Evan, wait!" A young woman stepped out from behind a boulder ahead. Hiking clothes, hands visible. For half a second, my body went ice, because I recognized her. She wasn't 8 years old now. She was maybe 22. Lean, sharp-eyed, breathless. But I knew her face. The crying child. She stopped at a cautious distance. "I know you don't trust me," she said, "but I can get you out." I didn't step forward. "You're part of it," I said. "I was," she said quickly. My name's Riley." I didn't lower my guard. Her eyes looked human now. Not vacant, not scripted. "I played the kid," she said. "I did what they told me. It was supposed to be harmless stress response research, but it's not harmless." I kept behind cover. "How do I know this isn't another scenario?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "You don't," she admitted. "But you're already marked. If you go back, they'll put you in the facility. You know that." I stared at her, heart hammering. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket and held it out, not like a trap, like an offering. "A trail," she said. "Old mining route. Doesn't show on maps. It leads to the boundary 2 miles northeast. Fence has a weak spot where a seasonal creek undercuts it. I didn't take it yet. They'll search for you," she said. "They'll use radios, drones, dogs. But this trail stays low, hidden. Why help me?" I asked, because the question mattered. Motive mattered. Riley's face tightened with something like guilt. "I've watched them do this to people for 6 months," she said. "Veterans. People who just wanted a job. They call it adaptation. They measure your fear, your compliance." My grip on my pack strap turned white. "It's not for treatment," she added, voice dropping. "It's for training. Psychological operations. How to break people without touching them. How to make someone doubt their senses while still obeying orders." The world around me went colder. I thought of the bear, the trios, the wolf howls, the child. A system designed to fracture reality. "You're not the first," she whispered. "And if you escape and stay quiet, you won't be the last." I took the map. Her hand trembled when she released it. "Go," she said. "They'll realize I'm missing soon." "What happens to you?" I asked. She gave a thin, sad smile. "They need me," she said. "They'll believe I lost you. They always believe what? And fits their paperwork." Then she turned and disappeared into the trees. I moved fast, following her bearings. The trail was real narrow, old, hidden under needles and time. It hugged low ground, crossed 2 streams, stayed beneath ridges where aerial eyes would see movement. 2 hours later, I reached the boundary fence, chain link topped with barbed wire, stretching like a scar. At the creek depression Riley had marked, the bottom edge lifted just enough to make cutting possible. I used the wire cutters from my emergency kit, an old habit from a life I'd hoped was over. Metal gave way. I crawled through. On the other side, the air felt different, not cleaner, freer. Because beyond that fence, they didn't own the rules. I hiked across ranchland until I found a highway in a small town clustered around a gas station and diner. There was a payphone outside the gas station, old enough to feel like it belonged to another era, which made it perfect. I called Sam Caldwell. He answered on the second ring. "Who is this?" "Sam," I said. "It's Evan." A beat of silence. "Evan Rusk," he said, voice changing. "Where the hell have you been?" "Running," I said. "I need help." Sam didn't ask for details first. He never did. "How deep?" he asked. "Deep enough that people disappear," I said. "Deep enough that they have my medical file and they're calling me a subject." His breathing changed, soldier instincts waking. "Copy," he said. "Listen, there's a truck stop 30 miles south. Granite Bear, and Travel Plaza, Pump 6. Wait." "How long?" I asked. "You'll see them," he said. The line went dead. I waited by Pump 6 like a ghost. A long-haul driver in a faded cap rolled in, glanced at me, and nodded once. "Get in," he said. No name, no questions. We drove through the night toward Colorado. For months, I lived under a different name in a cabin outside Denver, working construction jobs for cash, keeping my phone off. sleeping with my boots within reach. Sam's network kept me fed and invisible. And through encrypted messages that arrived like heartbeat taps, I learned the truth wasn't staying inside Iron Ridge. The program spread, new protocol sheets and other preserves. New rangers reporting bears doing impossible things. New missing kids that weren't missing at all. The same stage trios sitting too still by lakes and meadows like human tripwires. Riley sent one message every few weeks through a secure channel Sam provided. Short, coded, precise. They expanded. They're recruiting through veteran job boards. They're talking about VA partnerships. One message made my blood run cold. Togi didn't transfer. He's gone. Gone. Not reassigned. Not evaluated. Gone. I couldn't sleep after that. Because if Toby was gone, it meant the program didn't just study people. It disposed of them. And if it disposed of people, then the only reason I was alive was that I had run faster than their paperwork, so I started writing. Everything. The rules, the encounters, the way Mara spoke like someone reading, the way Dr. Voss had my confidential file, the way Cal's friendliness had been camouflage, the way appropriate channels was a synonym for erasing. But testimony wasn't enough. A program like that didn't die because one traumatized vet yelled into the wind. You needed evidence that could survive law and politics and denial. Sam's network had people I hadn't known existed, an investigative journalist who'd broken military contract scandals, a civil rights attorney who specialized in coercion cases, a retired officer with connections on a congressional oversight committee. They didn't trust my story at first. Then Riley sent something. A single file. A photo of a clipboard page taken in a hurry. A grid with names coded, names and columns labeled. Compliance, disorientation, moral conflict, obedience score, termination risk. I stared at that last phrase until my vision blurred. Termination risk. Not transfer. Not evaluation. Termination. It was the first piece of evidence that wasn't my memory. Then Riley sent another. A short audio clip, Dr. Voss speaking in a briefing room. The paranormal framing increases compliance when combined with authority cues. The subject's need for structure overrides their skepticism. We can induce self-doubt without physical coercion. It wasn't a confession. Not legally clean, but it was a crack. And cracks are how light gets in. Sam's journalist contact *** Nina Harrow *** took the material and didn't go public immediately, and she did what real investigators do. She hunted corroboration. She found a former contracting officer who'd signed invoices for environmental sound equipment that looked suspiciously like directional speakers. She found a subcontractor paid to provide performance personnel in remote locations, actors. She found a medical records access log with unusual entries, names like Dr. Voss appearing where they shouldn't. And finally, she found someone who'd been in the program before me. A veteran named *** Marcus Hale ***, who'd left the preserve with a payout and a non-disclosure agreement until his nightmares got bad enough that he decided money wasn't worth silence. Marcus's testimony matched mine too closely to dismiss. Backward bear, crying child, rule sheet, trios, barricade. The program wasn't a ghost story. It was a machine. And machines can be stopped if you hit the right gears. The first attempt to expose it almost failed. Nina's editor got threatened with lawsuits and national security concerns. The attorney received quiet warnings that her license could be challenged. A senator's staffer canceled a meeting without explanation. Then Sam did what veterans do when bureaucracy tries to bury the dead. He went around. He found a retired general who owed him a favor. That general arranged a private briefing for a small oversight group, no cameras, no press, just people with clearances and enough stubbornness to listen. We presented everything. My testimony, Marcus's testimony, Riley's evidence, the contracting trails, the audio clip, the record access logs, the termination risk grid. The committee members didn't look shocked. They looked furious. Because the ugliest truth wasn't that someone had built a psychological torture program. The ugliest truth was that it wasn't new. It was a recycled idea, repackaged with better funding. This time, the targets weren't enemy combatants. They were veterans desperate for work, people already carrying wounds, people easy to label unstable if they complained. And that made it not just unethical, it made it efficient. The investigation moved slower than justice ever should, but it moved. Federal agents showed up at Iron Ridge under the cover of a safety audit. They seized servers. They took radios. They opened locked file cabinets. They pulled contracts. They interviewed staff under oath. Mara Klein resigned before they could question her. Cal Mercer vanished into retirement, claiming health issues. Dr. Voss tried to fly out of state and got detained at an airport. Riley disappeared for 2 days and I thought she was dead. Then a message came through Sam's channel, one word, alive. She'd been extracted by a whistleblower protection team Nina's lawyer had arranged in advance, because once we pulled the first brick out, we knew the wall might fall on her. When the story finally broke publicly, it didn't hit like a normal scandal. It hit like an earthquake, because people weren't just reading about fraud. They were reading about a system designed to weaponize fear. They were reading about veterans being lured into jobs and turned into data points. They were reading the rule sheet, the same 6 lines that had made my stomach drop on day one printed in national headlines. There were denials, of course. There were statements about misunderstandings, unauthorized initiatives, isolated misconduct. But the evidence was too heavy. And once the public saw the words termination risk on an official evaluation grid, the spinning got harder. The next part was quieter. Not headlines, paperwork, court filings, testimony, depositions that lasted hours. The attorney pushed for victim lists, names, rangers who'd transferred, rangers who'd resigned, rangers whose files were sealed. One name mattered most, Toby Finch. They didn't find him at first. No hospital, no record, no facility with his name. Then one of the seized server backups produced a location tag connected to an encrypted report. A set of coordinates in northern Wyoming. A private research site disguised as a rehabilitation retreat. The kind of place that looked peaceful from the road and sounded safe on a brochure. Federal agents raided it at dawn. Inside they found rooms that weren't rooms, observation spaces with one-way glass, restraints disguised as safety equipment, therapy scripts that weren't therapy. They found Toby, alive, thin, pale, not sure where he was. When Nina told me, I sat down on the floor of my cabin and didn't move for a long time, because my mind had made peace with him being dead. And now I had to make space for the fact that he'd lived through something worse. Riley testified under protection. Her voice shook once, then steadied. She described how they trained actors to cry in exactly the right tone, to run in exactly the right way, to push moral triggers like buttons. She described the bear how it wasn't a bear at all, not entirely. A remote-controlled rig with fur and heat masking, designed to look real at distance, backed by audio and timing. She described how the trio sitters were rotated like chess pieces and coached to move in synchronized patterns that felt wrong enough to hook the human brain. She described the wolf howl's directional speakers placed on ridgelines, timed to hit with surgical precision. The goal was never just fear. The goal was confusion. Confusion plus authority equals compliance. That was the formula. And once you understood the formula, the horror wasn't supernatural. It was human. The trial took time. The verdict took longer. Some people got prison. Some people got immunity deals by pointing higher up. And some people, I'm sure, walked away with pensions and quiet smiles because the system is built to save itself. But the program, the one that had eaten my first week at Iron Ridge, got dismantled publicly. They couldn't hide it anymore. And that mattered. Not because it healed me. Not because it returned the lost time. But because it stopped the machine from chewing new people. A year later, I stood on a stage in a small auditorium, invited to speak at a veteran advocacy event. No uniform, no badge. Just a microphone and a room of people who knew what it meant to wake up already tired. Sam sat in the back row, arms crossed, watching like he always did. Nina stood near the exit with her press pass tucked away, looking relieved and exhausted. Riley didn't attend. She was still under protection, rebuilding her life in a place with a different sky. Toby was there, though. He sat near the front with a bottle of water in his hands, knuckles white, eyes focused like he was anchoring himself to the present. I looked out at the faces and felt my chest tighten, not from panic this time, from something sharper, responsibility. I told them the truth not as a ghost story, not as a cinematic thriller, but as a warning. I told them that systems can learn your pain and call it data. I told them that authority can wear a friendly uniform and still lie. I told them that sometimes the scariest thing you'll ever face isn't a monster in the woods, it's a person with a clipboard who knows exactly what you're afraid of and plans to use it. After the event, Toby approached me slowly. He didn't smile. He just held out his hand. I shook it, and in that grip there was no ceremony, no gratitude speech, just two people acknowledging we were still here. Outside, the wind was cold the way it had been at Iron Ridge, but it didn't feel like a trap anymore. It felt like weather. Just weather. I drove back to my cabin that night, and for the first time in a long time, the darkness beyond my headlights felt like the unknown it was supposed to be, not a stage set, not a lab, not a program, just night. When I got inside, I opened my wallet and pulled out the crumpled rule sheet I'd kept all this time. The paper was soft from handling. The ink faded in places. 6 lines that had once controlled me. I held it over the sink, struck a match, and watched the corner curl and blacken. The flame climbed the words fast. Backward bear, crying child. 3 howls, barricade, leave. Don't look, don't ask. The smoke smelled like burnt dust and old fear. When the last scrap fell into ash, I rinsed it away. And I stood there a moment longer than necessary, listening to the quiet. Not the kind of quiet that hides something. The kind of quiet that finally lets you breathe. Because the war they tried to run on my mind didn't end with my escape. It ended with me choosing to fight back the right way out in the open, where lies don't like to live. And if there's one thing I learned out there, one thing I'd say to anyone who ever finds themselves handed a rule sheet that tells them to ignore their humanity, it's this. A system that asks you to stop being human is not protecting you, it's training you. And the moment you realize that, you stop being a subject. You become a witness. And witnesses are how monsters get caught.